the Self-Development with Tactics podcast once again. It's been some time. It's been some days, through the holidays, not having. I mean, of course, one could really incorporate quite everything into one's life, but to some degree, it would include some, some bit of unnecessity, I would argue. And I think being able to break a routine, I think, and adapt a routine to one's lifestyle, one's whatever it might be, is also very important. Something that I mean, some people would definitely also say, okay, this is kind of my one's discipline lacking and whatever. But yeah, anyway, we're going through a book summary today. I really like doing so, and I would I would really have to write it down what I like about it particularly. But today it's gonna be about college, apparently. I'm gonna show you. Is it this? No, it's not. That is from the Nat Eliason or nateliason.com site. I would actually need to look that up from the college section, which I think is just primarily targeted at people that are young and people that might always be some sort of lost. I think I would say that before I was starting the episode, I thought, well, what if I just go through something dog training related, because there is an extra section for that, because there are probably certain things that I can take from that and translate it into different parts of life. Something else that I do want to note, that I found particularly interesting today as I was listening to a podcast episode by Andrew Huberman, was him mentioning that first of all, Tim Ferriss being a great inspiration for him on one hand, and on the other hand, that's the things that particularly I think the diet, the low carb diet that Tim promoted, and I think still is doing to quite some bit, among other things, is really ahead, or I think is still, and it maybe was, it might be leveled now, but back then was really ahead of the curve in terms of what I think people and also science knew, which really struck me and which was really interesting to me. So maybe also going through those rather old resources by Tim Ferriss, which there is quite a lot available in the web and also in his books, might be really a smart idea. Anyway, The Defining Decade by Meg J. It is a guide to not feeling lost in your 30s and 40s from a clinical psychologist who sees young people. It is a must-read if you're in your 20s, so some of the research and examples are subject, but the advice is excellent. It was rated 9 out of 10, which really does mean something. I mean, if you're going through hundreds and hundreds of books, a rating does mean something. Anyway, the book centers around Jay's experience as a clinical psychologist seeing people in their 30s and 40s who are hamstrung by having lack of vision in their 20s. This book is meant to provide people in their 20s with some direction around creating that vision, and not in a corny way, so that they're setting themselves up better for their 30s and beyond, instead of playing catch up after derping around for 8 years. She highlights how the job market has shifted for people coming out of college. The Great Recession and its continuing aftermath have led many 20-something feeling naive, even devastated. 20-somethings are more educated than ever before, but a smaller percentage find work after college, which I didn't know, and I still also do not know if this is applicable to 2022/2023 as well. It might not be the case, but who really knows? Let's change that. Let's see. Many entry-level jobs have gone overseas, making it more difficult for 20-somethings to gain a foothold at home. With a contracting economy and growing population, unemployment is at its highest in decades. An unpaid internship is the new starter job, which is complete bullshit, at least at my point of view. But it's fine, and it probably is fine for some people. About a quarter of 20-somethings are out of work, and another quarter work only part-time. 20-somethings who do have paying jobs earn less than their 1970s counterparts when adjusted for inflation. So all of the options that we have seem to be to our detriment. So many of Jay's patients describe feeling lost in a sea of options, not able to dedicate themselves to anything because of so many alternatives, which, I don't know if, I think this is a general problem also when it comes to what should I study, for example. Many people, actually almost all of the people that I'm talking to, say that they do not know what they should be studying. They don't know what fits them best, and how should they know? For some people it might come really easy because of certain reasons, maybe the family, maybe something else, I don't really know. But I think for the majority it really is quite a hard decision to make. And on one hand, probably because of all the alternatives there are. There are quite a few things that you can study locally, but also you can also do things internationally. But yeah, identity capital. Jay starts off the work, quote-unquote, section of the book by introducing the idea of identity capital, which is the collection of skills, relationships, and professional resources we build up over our lives. Erik Erikson. Which is the collection of skills, relationships, and professional resources we build up over our lives. Many people in their 20s aren't built up on any of them by sitting around at home or taking dead-end jobs. GPA and college degrees don't really count since everyone has them. Once again, I think it really does matter where you're living, where you're coming from, what education that you're having, and period. This is, this might be true for the US and may definitely not be true for where I'm living. So yeah. Never building up this capital and never getting good jobs leads to depression. Sitting around at home, drinking ends the opioid epidemic. I don't know if there's any link, but it could surely be the case. Jay's advice: take the job with the most career capital, where you'll build the most relationships, learn the most, grow the most, and not necessarily make the most money. Which I think is really good advice and really is sensical. Up to the point where you have to really make some money so you can sustain yourself. Of course, having a frugal lifestyle, not having the newest shit all the time, really, it does help. But in certain areas, certain countries, certain states, certain whatever, housing prices are just, so incredibly high. And of course, you can still be at home, which is fine, which is totally great if the relationship with your parents is fine, which is not the case for everyone. And so some people really do have to maybe even have to do 2 jobs or 3 of them and whatever. But yes, it obviously makes sense to do a job where there is a lot of capital for the future, a lot of connections, a lot of things to learn and whatever. I do remember that I went through this book summary before, but I also do remember that it was quite good, I guess. Weak ties. Jay's goes on to highlight how important weak ties are for the job market. Weak ties tends to be the best sources of employment, and a large network of weak ties gives you the broadest reach and greatest perspective instead of a few very close ties. Jay's advice: build up your network of weak ties instead of only spending time with your close friends. It is the people you rarely talk to who might lead to fortuitous relationships down the road, and you want the broad exposure, which I also understand. But I also do believe that people may not be fine with, I don't know how to explain that, but always trying to get something out of everything that you're doing, out of the people that you're spending your time with, out of whatever it might be. I don't really know if this is the best approach to life. of course, it makes sense. I don't want to say that you should only be, I don't know, having 2 friends or whatever. But I also wouldn't say that. I think it really comes up to how you're dealing with it. Of course, I can be an asshole and just, really think about what I can get from those people that I'm spending my time with. But I can also just be genuine and really just only make friends with people that I enjoy being with. But just, trying to have as many friends as I want to have. Of course, there's also going to be certain downsides of, okay, I have to attend this party, I have to be there and whatever, everywhere quite at some point, which is cool for some people and really not cool for some other people, including myself. The unthought known. We all have unthought knowns, things we have forgotten about ourselves but still know under the surface. In context here, Jay is referring to the dreams of who we want to be and what we want to do that get stifled by practicality in our peers. So her advice is, or his, I don't actually remember. Introspect and try to find what you know about yourself but are afraid to admit to yourself. What do you want deep down but don't know how to get or are afraid you will fail at? Which I think is smart, nothing new. My life should look better on Facebook. After graduating and being fixed on the college process, many students feel they are failing in their 20s because they don't know how to get an A anymore. They are used to having a formula for success, and now that it's gone, they feel lost. Very few people reach their potential in their 20s. It is more likely to happen in your 30s, 40s, or even 50s. So stop focusing on glory or impressing other people. Focus on what you want to do with your life. If that means moving to Nashville and settling down, do it. You don't have to become a rocket surgeon. Yeah, you don't have to be a rocket surgeon. I think definitely the case, unless you really want to do so. Depends on you, depends on what you're good at, which, might tie into the thought above. If you know that you are really good at, I don't know, X, Y, and Z, you should probably do that. And you really like it, unless you really hate it, then, I wouldn't suggest doing so. But yeah. The customized life. Picking something when we have the world of options in front of us feels limiting. We don't want to give up freedom, don't want to give up the ability to go in any direction. So Jay's advice, you want your professional life to have a story, not just be a list. Picking your interests and talents and what you want to apply them to can create a story and a narrative that you bring to interviews and coffee dates. You need to decide what you want to focus on. Yeah, customized life. What I'm seeing as a customized life is not just being your degree. You might have a degree in whatever the fuck, but once a teacher in university told me that, or told us that nobody really gives a shit about the things that you're doing in university, but rather the things that you're doing outside of university, so in your free time. And I mean, if I would be employing somebody, of course I would give a shit about, I mean, what is this person doing besides just, studying and, maybe even having all A's in everything this person is doing in this person's academical career. It could be the case, but, of course, it is very interesting if this person is doing this, that, and the other thing. If this person is having maybe a podcast that is relevant to some degree. If this person speaks a language better than, somebody else that is also, or that I've also interviewed, and so on and so forth. I mean, there are many, many, also how you're presenting yourself, if you're able to deal with people, if you're able to talk, if, you're likable, I think is a very big one as well. So the customized life for me is really also, and this is definitely advice from myself, trying to build skills, trying to build knowledge in certain spaces in your free time, just because you're interested in life and just because you're interested in things, and period. But yeah, that being said, I'm gonna end the episodes here. Hopefully see you soon and wish you the best.